So it is working. Good morning, everyone, again. And today is the last day of the year, 31st of December 2022. And before we start our study, it is really surprisingly good, if I can say like that, to have you guys here on the last day of the year in a room to study Kardec. So it does show that things can happen, right? So that's very good. So let's start with a quick prayer before I share the book with you all. Master Jesus, how to thank you for the opportunity to be here today, the last day of this present year of 2022, for the opportunity to study Kardec's teachings, our brother, who had a massive work to prepare the pavement to ourselves, to all of us, that your light could be reached, could reach every corner of this world and every home here represented today. Be with us, and so be it. So let me share my screen with you all. Just make it a little bit smaller so I can read better. Yeah. So we have stopped in the item 102. Let's start today. We'll start from there. We're talking about visual manifestations. Item 102. Apparitions per se occur during the walking states when the individual is in full enjoyment and has the complete freedom of his or her faculties. They generally appear in a vaporous and diaphanous form that is something vague and indistinct. When they first appear, they are almost always whitish light, whose contours gradually become more definite. At other times, their forms are clearly accentuated and minutest traces of the face can be distinguished to such a degree that it can be precisely described. Their appearance and other characteristics are similar to those of the spirit when it was incarnate. Since a spirit can assume any appearance, it presents itself with the one by which it can best be identified, if that is what is wants. I personally try to accept and to understand everything that is written in this book, because as I like to say, this is the safest guide ever to any medium. I believe, and that's something personal, I believe that to be able to exercise that characteristics to change form, shape, color, you name it, you need to have the knowledge to do. I have hard time to believe that any spirit is able to change its format, its shape, its face, its color, as it wants, as it please. I used to split what we get from the spiritual world in two classes: elevated spirits and non-elevated spirits. That we are non-elevated spirits. And elevated spirits, yes, I'm prepared to accept because of the moral development, because of the technical knowledge, because of what they have been exposed. They will be able to indeed make things that we, most of us at least, we are not able to. Why I'm saying that? I have a hard time to see every single spirit doing what they please. And even the other day, we were having a study where we talked about the characteristics of the perispirit, that can, the flexibility of the perispirit, also including how you can create things, right, through your thought ability. I also have restrictions about that. Imagine if any spirits could create anything just by the power of the thought. I think could be a mess. Imagine everything that you can create just thinking, you know? So I still have to learn about that. I believe I have a lot to learn about that, but I have a hard time to accept that. Hi, Munia, help me out.
Again, I just want to give my contribution, because just before that, it's been said that they generally appear in vaporous and diaphanous form, showing that perhaps their appearance is not exactly their perispirit as such, but it is, you know, how would I say, projection of their perispirit. Because if they can appear in a vaporous and diaphanous form, it means, are they in that form, you know? Or is this the way they are going to show themselves in this apparition? So what I understand here is more in the way that they show themselves than their perispirit itself in that, you know, normal state. And the other thing also, food for thought. We can look at someone here, and by the expression of that person, we know if the person is happy, and happy, it's, you know, what more or less what's going on in the person's mind. And since the perispirit is more malleable than the physical body, perhaps this can express itself more easily in the perispirit, not a total transformation, but, you know, a way to show what we are feeling more easily than when we have a physical body. And even in a physical body, we can perceive that. We can look at someone and say, well, what's bothering you? Your face, you know, you're frowning, you are, sort of thing, you know. But exactly how it happens, yeah, I think there's a question mark. And also remember that Kardec always talks about the general case. You know, the spirits, they can, but will every spirit do it? Well, this is a different thing.
Yeah. When we were talking, Munia, something came to my mind, is the transfiguration of certain mediums. I know.
Yes, yeah.
I know some that have that characteristics, and they describe feeling their physical body changing, right? Something like, not, it's hard to them to explain, but it's not physical, but it's kind of energy changing around them. But the other people in the room see them totally different, like they have changed physically, their appearance. It happens every day. How many times it happens? 2, 3 times over a lifetime, you know. So it's not because it can happen that will happen, and it's not to everyone's ability neither. So yeah. Thus, even though it has no actual corporeal handicap as a spirit, it may appear to be maimed, lame, humpbacked, wounded, or scared, if that is what is needed to identify it. I like to always compare what we see to the practice. And when I mean practice, we mean mediumship meetings. When the spirit comes to a meeting and he is describing his status, it's not just a status of mind. His perispirit is hurted, is bleeding. So I see how and why so many people believe everything is in the mind. But if we study a bit the perispirit, its characteristics, its organic characteristics, we start to see that there's a little bit more than that, you know. Once again, if we split high elevated spirits, what we are, perhaps, yes. Elevated spirits are able to make disappear the arm as they wish. But I have a hard time to see spirits in our level with that ability. Because we have to understand, then I'll talk a little bit about perispirit. The perispirit is connected to the physical body, cell by cell, molecule by molecule. If it is connected cell by cell, you do have exactly the same organs you have in your physical body, in your perispirit. Or we've been taught something that's wrong. So I prefer to believe that we've been taught something right. And logic says that we have the same organs in our perispirit too. Perhaps with different functions, I'm not discussing that. But the organs are there. How can I make my arm, my limbs, my heart, my face disappear just by my thought? I think we still have a lot to learn in regards to perispirit, its characteristics, what can or cannot be done. We also have to take into consideration that at the time of Kardec's time, if he was prepared to elaborate deeply into perispirit, something that I believe he could, he had the knowledge to do so, but he chose not to for some reasons. Perhaps if he had brought the little we know today at that time, it would be a disaster for the doctrine. And Kardec says that he would not go into that subject in details because somebody else would come to do. Somebody else from his time. I could not identify who was that person. And I always recommend people to see everything, to read everything, but also to leave a little bit of space for interpretation of everything we read. If I read in the very same sense that is written, that like that here, I can believe when I die, my spirits can do anything. I can appear in a shape of elephant to Munir. I can appear in a shape of butterfly to Charles. I can appear as a wish to everyone. And I have a hard time to see that. Perhaps I'm totally wrong, but I'm just sharing with you guys some of my personal thoughts. For example, Aesop is not deformed as a spirit, but if we would evoke him, he would appear ugly and humpbacked, wearing his traditional garb, no matter how many lives he had lived in the meantime. Let's elaborate a little. Let's give food for thought. I am in my 21st reincarnation. I'm reincarnated. I died. Okay, everybody's happy to accept that when I die, I will have exactly the same appearance as I have in my last incarnation. And for any reason, Munir knows me from 2 lives ago, and he decided to call me from 2 lives ago, evoking me from 2 lives ago into a meeting. Why would I appear for Munir automatically in that shape and form from 2 lives ago? I don't know. I'm being very honest. I don't know, but I have a hard time to accept things like that. It's possible. Yes, it's possible. If this spirit in particular have the knowledge, knows how to manipulate the fluids, the energy, is morally elevated to do so, yes, perhaps. But if I don't know anything, if I'm not elevated at all, is there any physical, chemical mechanism behind that? Because you're calling me a different name, I will change who I am?
Guilherme,
Yes.
one question. Normally, people does not remember one, like 2 or 3 incarnations before, because they say that the guilt will be too much to carry. So how can you even know that Munir was calling you if you're not, you don't know you were that person back then?
I love your question, Denise, because that makes me believe that we are thinking outside the box. I cannot answer you because I'm in the same page as you. If I don't remember who I was, how I even know Munir is calling me from that 2,000 years ago experience? I don't know. I don't know. But I really appreciate your question, because I think the goal of this study is to make us think. Because when we have questions like that, the second step is to try to find the answer for that question. So we will study a little bit more, and that's beautiful. Hi, Liz.
Hi there, everyone. Would it not happen that a spirit will always show you their appearance as to how you remember them, regardless of it reincarnation, period or whatever? So you can recognize them, apart from, spirits being of a lower level where they're not able to change or something. But in general, consciousness, when they appear, they will appear as you recognize them. Like my son would appear as my son, my dad as my dad. They show us various things when we do our sessions. Like my son will show me, or my daughter, his puffer jacket and various things to prove they are who they are, even the primary school, jumper that they used to wear. But the face is always as we recall them. And the other thing was about previous incarnations. Yes, in this incarnation, we might not know of our previous incarnations, but the spirit is pure consciousness anyway. So the spirit will recall the different incarnations. So maybe in a dream, when you're more in affinity with your spirit in that consciousness, maybe in a dream that you can recall your previous lives and they will appear as
Liz,
you were together in that life.
Liz, we had a few things you said that I would like to talk before I miss it. First of all, you're right, that's exactly what the book is saying. The spirit will appear as you will recognize him. And questions we were making is to try to make us think a bit beyond that. And to make us think a bit beyond that, I'll create another hypothesis here. I know you now from this incarnation. I know Munir from my previous incarnations, and I know Charles from 10 incarnations before. Okay?
Mhm.
I just died, and you guys are in the mediumship meeting, right? So I have 3 different people from 3 different eras in the same room. How should I appear?
Good question.
You know, so my questions is not to say something is wrong, not at all. My questions quite often are to make us think outside the box. Okay, and you said that the spirits will remember. Well, we have an out lecture literature from the spirits and from reliable mediums that brought to us that when we passed, we do not remember our previous incarnations.
It's a veil.
So to get access to what we were, we need to go through a process. Time, have the permission to recall previous incarnations. Because if we do remember what we were 1,000 years ago, we'll collapse. Because the atrocities we made 1,000 years ago would be so much that we would not, we won't keep up, right? So I don't think, honestly, I'm just making questions to make us think, but I really don't know the answers. Hi, Munir.
I mean, first, I want to say that, yes, I mean, the memory is there of our previous incarnations. The access to those memories is that, you know, is limited unless we reach a certain level when we can cope with the, you know, the memories and so on. So we recover them. It's not they are lost forever. They are there, you know, locked in a room and for the spirit never to have access to that. And I'll say something that perhaps will make things even worse. What do we see when we see spirits? If we are not using the eyes see the reflection of light on a body, physically speaking. But what do we see when we see a spirit? Is it a reflection of the perispirit? Because we are too much thinking in terms of form, the form of the perispirit. But what is this form if we don't see the reflection of light? What exactly do we see when we see a spirit? We know we see without perispirit. But what do we see?
I don't see the spirit. I see the perispirit.
But what do you see? How? What's the process? This is the question, you know. In physical terms, I can say, well, you need light, you need reflection. Light reflects on a body, gets back to your eye. So I understand the process of what we are seeing. And then perhaps we are too limited to this process of seeing. And then we imagine that the perispirit changes, you know, it's like the physical body changing the form and
is a possibility. Is a possibility. And we do not see with the physical eyes, starting from there. We see with the eyes from our perispirit. So when we see something, we see not with the physical eyes, but our perceptions, our senses are physical. And when I did ask in the past, and I did ask about how you guys saying you see from every direction, how is that possible? The explanation was very difficult to understand, because yes, we see everything as an energy, we see everything, yes, okay. Okay, but it's still difficult to understand, even with the explanation that was given, because of my limitations, was very difficult to understand.
Yeah, and just so to finish, what came into my mind were the cases in the series by André Luiz, where he reports that they go to lower regions, in the denser regions, and they undergo a process of turning themselves visible to those spirits. Then comes the question, what exactly takes place there? Because it requires some time for them to do that. It's not immediate. I render myself visible.
Not every spirit can do. There is a time factor. There is a knowledge factor. There is a technical aspect involved. There's a lot of things. But oh dear, we have hands. I didn't see the hands. Who's there first? Go, Liz.
We're always told that as the Earth is a third density realm, our perceptions and our expectations come from a third density level, and we're trying to decipher things from a third density level when they can be fourth or fifth density things that we're trying to interpret, which you cannot with the level of interpretation that we have down here on third level.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah. Hi, Cleo.
Hi, it's just gonna mention something very quick. When you said that we see with the perispirit eyes, reminds me what one of my friends said. He said he could see the spirits in front of him, and then when they move towards behind his back, he could still see it the same way. So that's just proves what you said, that when we see with the perispirit eyes and not with our actual eyes.
One thing that is very interesting is that when we face a spirit in front of us, we close our eyes because we don't want to see. That does not disappear. I can close my physical eyes and I still can see the spirit. So that's another way to show that we do not see with the physical eyes. One particularity worth noting is that except in special circumstances, at least precise components of apparition are the lower limbs, while the head, torso, arms, and hands appears clearly. I was planning to talk about that when Munir made his first comment, but now becomes a bit more clear. He is referring to how you see. He's not saying how it is. This whole sentence until now, basically, is how we perceive them. It doesn't mean that they do not have limbs, they do not have arms, hands, faces. It's not that. He's referring to how we perceive them. I can give another example. I have a little hair here. If I put a hat, you're not able to see if I do have hair or not. So your perception from distance can be clouded to the point that you will not be able to tell if I do have hair or not. So from where I am standing, looking to a spirit, my ability to see the spirit may be limited to the point that I will only perceive the torso, the head, not the limbs. Right? So this is our perception. And once again, we have, I don't know how many people in the room today, but let's say we have 10 people in the room today. The spirit will appear to all of us. I will see just the head. Munir will see the head and the torso. Charles will see the head, the torso, and the arms. Liz will see the head, the torso, and the legs. is not a perfect science, because mediumship is organic, and our physical body and the organism of our perispirits are not equally the same. Hence, we almost never see them walk. They glide like shadows. As for the garment, they are usually comprised of a sort of drapery that ends in a long flowing folds. Spirits who have retained nothing of their earthly life appears with flowing and graceful hair, but the ordinary spirits of individuals with whom we are familiar usually dress as they did during the final days of their existence. We also have information that as we move along on the spiritual world, our appearance, let's say I died with 97 years old, I'm a cripple. Right. But after a period of time over there, it's like I'm gaining some characteristics of youth. I start to appear stronger, I start to appear younger. So we also have that information in several books. André Luiz is one of them, about that information. Quite often they display attributes that are characteristics of the elevations, such as a halo or wings, leading them to be regarded as angels. What should I say about that? The spirit appears in a human form. Our human form does not have a halo nor wings. If my light, my energy, produces an effect that appears a halo, fair enough. Wings, I have hard time to believe. But as we see what we want to see as incarnated, as I've been taught by the church that they are angels with wings and everything else, when I see our illuminated spirit, I may see wings because that's what I'm prepared to see. But we were told that spirits will have human form. But we also know through other studies that we may lose our human appearance. So that's another one that I will give you my honest answer. I don't know. Munir, help me out, Munir.
Yeah, so many thoughts popping up. Guilherme, to me, it's becoming more clear that what Kardec is talking about here is actually what we see of them, not exactly what they are. It's like they display, that means they prepare something for us to see.
Mm-hmm.
So, regarding control of perispirit and so on, changing the perispirit, becoming, is perispirit with any form. I think it's not the question here. The question here is the effect they produce to be seen by us. And it has very much to do with what we know of them or what they represent to us. Mm-hmm. And angels and halo and wings, it's because most people, in these visions, their religion was, related to, churches, and just seeing angels or saints would mean something very special to them. but not exactly, that transformation underwent in that spirits. It's just a representation, a display, as they say. They display. So it's something prepared for us to see.
I am on the same page. Leading them to be regarded as angels, regarded. Others carry symbols that remind us of their earthly activities. A warrior might appear with an armor, a scholar with books, an assassin with a dagger, and so on. Highly evolved spirits display a beautiful, noble, and serene figure, whereas the least evolved ones have something ferocious and bestial about them. Sometimes still bearing vestige of the crimes they committed and the tortures they suffered. The issue of clothing and accessories is perhaps the most intriguing. We shall return to discuss this in a special chapter because it is connected to other very important issues. I agree, it's very intriguing. Very intriguing, right? Just to make it more intriguing, if the information brought by Chico Xavier, for example, is right, if the information brought from André Luiz is right, the government is prepared for the spirit. It's not something adjacent of the perispirit. You don't change your perispirit to appear with a hat or with a cloak. You have people that prepare those for you, manufacture those for you on the spiritual world. I'm just saying that to make things more attractive and complicated at the same time. But the study of André Luiz books is very important to have a better, or at least another understanding of the spiritual world. 103. We have stated that apparitions have something vaporous about them. In some cases, we could compare them to the image reflected in a silvered mirror, where, despite its clearness, we may also see objects that are behind the mirror. This is how seeing mediums usually perceive them. They see them come and go, enter a room or leave, circulate amongst a crowd or living persons. At least, when it comes to the ordinary spirits who take an interest in everything, listen to everything that is said, and take an active part in all that goes on around them. Good spirits are often to approach individuals in order to whisper ideas to them, to influence and to comfort them, while evil spirits do so in order to mock them and to show disappointment or satisfaction at the results. In other words, spirits are the counterpart of the corporeal world. Every time I see something like that, counterpart of the corporeal world, or any other way you want to present, I like to remind our friends that we define the spirits that are around us with our attitudes, with our thoughts, with our choices. So by now, I don't think we are 2 or 3 years old here, so we know already what is right, what is not right. If my choice is not the right one, the circle of spirits around me are directly related to our choices. So don't kid yourself and do not complain. Javier.
Hi, Guilherme. I would say that I wouldn't say those we choose those around us, but we choose those we call the attention to. Amongst those around us, we call the attention of certain spirits, because sometimes we go in an environment, we have different types of spirits there, but who are the ones that we are calling the attention?
Yeah, that's very true.
And these ones will pay attention to us. Perhaps others won't even notice us, but this is the thing. Who am I calling the attention?
That's very true. Yeah, good point. Thus, is that secret world surrounding us, in the midst of which we live without even suspecting it, just as we live among the myriad beings of the microscopic world. The microscope has revealed the infinitely tiny world, which we never suspect to exist. Spiritism, with the help of seeing mediums, have revealed the spirit world to us, which is also one of the active forces of nature. With the aid of such seeing mediums, we have been able to study the invisible world and to be initiated into its customs in the same way that a culture of blind individuals would be able to study the visible world with the help of sighted persons. See chapter 14 on mediums, the session referring to seeing mediums. Wonderful. What happened? Still have 15 minutes. A spirit who is desired, a spirit who so desires and who is actually able to appear sometimes, assumes an even more defined form, with all the appearances of a solid body, to the point of displaying a perfect illusion and leading us to believe that we are dealing with an actual corporeal being. We have the information that some mediums, especially on the beginning when they are not familiar with, they could see spirits as they see the incarnated beings. They cannot even make a difference between who is incarnated and who is not incarnated. Right? It's not to everyone, but some mediums reported that.
Guilherme,
Yep.
sorry to interrupt you. So that is the ability of the medium and not the spirit, because here he said that a spirit who so desires.
Mhm.
But I remember, I think the move Divaldo Franco, that he could not recognize the spirit that was a spirit or a real person. But the spirit itself did not even knew he had died. So is the medium more than spirit? Yes, I don't, because he insinuates that the spirit that he desires to appear as a person, and not the medium ability that sees as a full person.
We saw a couple of weeks ago that to be able to see is more than one factor.
Okay, yeah. Right.
The spirit wants to be seen. There must be an interaction of fluid between the spirit and the medium. The medium must have the capacity, the organic capacity to see. So it's not just one thing, right? But in that sentence, for example, if the spirit don't want to be seen,
Yeah, okay.
chances are that's not going to happen. But leaving another food for thought, sometimes we have the spirit in the corner of the room. Sometimes you have the spirit in the mediumship room. Oh, do you see me? How can you see me? So his will was not preventing the medium to see him. There is not a formula like 2 + 2 = 4. We have an equation and so many variables on that equation. And even if one of the factors of the equation is not there, it doesn't mean that you won't be able to, in that case, to see the spirit. Right? So there's nothing cast in stone as such. and may vary from medium to medium, from spirit to spirit, from situation to situation, right?
Thank you.
In some cases, and under certain circumstances, an apparition tangibility become real. Oh, I read that already, right? If we could attribute the occurrence of a simple visual apparition to illusion or a kind of delusion, there can be no more doubt when we can hold and feel it, and when it can hold and hug us. However, tangible apparitions are the rarest. Okay, let's talk here about tangible apparitions. Is basically when the spirit materializes himself to a level that you can feel, you can touch, you can sense the temperature, sense the smell. That is rare. But there are different layers of that process. Sometimes the spirit comes to us and give us a hug. We don't feel the spirit itself, but we feel like a little light hand passing through our head. We feel like a hug. We feel like a kiss. We smell a perfume. So there are different levels of that possibility. And that one that I'm saying, like we feel some chills, or it feels like someone touched me, but there's no one there, is more common. Okay. Nevertheless, those which have appeared of late under the influence of a few powerful mediums, and well, I don't like to use that sentence, powerful mediums, right? Because that may boost your false understanding of what a medium is. A medium is there to serve, and there's no such a thing of a powerful medium. He does not possess power, but his mediumship characteristics is such that if you compare one with another, you may find differences, and which we have been, completely authenticated by blameless witness, prove and explain the historical records involving persons who have reappeared after death with all the appearances of reality. Moreover, as we have already pointed out, in spite of how extraordinary such phenomena might seem, they lose all the extraordinary character when we know about the way in which they are produced, and when we understand that, far from representing a derogation from natural laws, they only display a new application of them. Everything we're talking about here in this book about mediumship is not supernatural. It's not from another world. It's not. No. Everything is comprised within the natural laws. Sometimes we do not know those laws. We do not believe those laws. The science are yet to prove those laws. But let's compare what we, as a scientist, know today and what we knew 100 years ago. If you take a scientist of today in a time machine and send him 100 years ago to speak to his peers about what he knows, what has been proven, the scientists from 100 years ago will not believe. Will say that he's totally crazy. If that very same scientist moves 300 years ago, they will burn him. because they will not have the capacity to even start to understand. You bring a lighter with you, and that's good enough to put you on the spike, because they think that's magic from beyond, you know. So mediumship is natural, is organic. All we're discussing here about different types of mediumship, how we see, we don't see, blah, blah, blah. Everything is natural, and it is comprised in the natural laws. We have always to remember that. There's no magic. God bless you. 105. Oh, what time is it? I need to pay attention. By its very nature and its normal state, the perispirit is invisible. The same. Let me stop here. The perispirit is invisible to our physical eyes. When we sleep, we start to see what is around us. When we die, the perispirit is not invisible. The perispirit is like our physical body for the spirits. So the perispirit is invisible to our physical eyes. The same may be said of countless fluids that we know to exist, but which we have never seen. Oxygen is like one, right? We can weigh the oxygen, but we cannot see the oxygen. But like certain fluids, it can undergo modifications that render it visible, whether by a sort of condensation or by a change in its molecular arrangements. What does it mean, really? You know, I cannot see the air, right? But in certain situations, if I mix the gases, I can start to see that with colors. Is an example. So when we're talking about perispirit, perhaps the ability to make us see the discarnated spirit involves a molecular arrangement. We truly do not know. Maybe. But when, as Munir said earlier today, when the spirit is due to go to lower zones where the air is dense, its perispirit changes. Its perispirits modify. Perhaps is a molecular level change. So just a thought. This is when it can appear to us in a vaporous form. Condensation. We must not take this word literally. We only use it due to the lack of another and as a simple instrument of comparison. Can be such that the perispirits acquire the properties of a solid and tangible body, but it can instantaneously return to its ethereal and invisible state. How is that possible, you know? And today we know already that to have some apparitions, it is required a medium, a physical effects medium, donating ectoplasm to allow that to happen. A materialization as such. You need the ectoplasms from the medium in order to make it happen. How is it possible that the perispirit will absorb the ectoplasm to make it happen? That's a very nice question, and we are hoping to ask one day. But we don't know yet exactly how it works. We only know that the medium donates the ectoplasm, the spirit absorb somehow this ectoplasm and become tangible. We can understand this process by comparing it to steam, which can go from invisibility to a mist, and then to a liquid, and finally to a solid, and vice versa. These diverse states of the perispirits, however, are due to the will of the spirit itself and not to the physical or outside causes, as is the case of all gases. These diverse states of the perispirit, however, are due to the will of the spirit itself and not to the physical or outside causes, as it is the case. Once again, to think outside the box, not all spirits have that condition. Even if he want to, if he exercising his will, I particularly don't believe every spirit has the same condition. I may be totally wrong, but I'm sharing with you my opinion. Our spirit can appear to us when it places its perispirits in the state necessary to become visible. But a simple desire is not enough to produce the effect, because the modification of the perispirit can only occur when it's combined its own fluid with the specific fluid of the medium. We saw that already, right? So it's not just a matter of will. It's not just a matter of volition of the spirit. He needs to know how to make that fluid combination. If you put myself in a chemical lab with all the chemical products, nothing's going to happen because I don't know which chemical I should mix to make something. I don't know. I know there are chemicals. I can read sodium, blah, 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 blah. But I don't know if I mix A to B, what's going to happen. So we need to have the minimum conditions to make it happen, in my own humble opinion. This combining is not always possible, which explains why it is uncommon for spirits to make themselves visible. I will stop here because our time is coming. Let me just make a note so I don't miss where we are. And okay, let me stop sharing with you guys. And Munia, this is our last study of this year.
Okay.
Can you do us a prayer?
Yes. Okay. Let's do it. Let's then close our eyes together, wherever we are on this planet. Let's link our thoughts, our hearts, and raise them up to God, our Father and Creator, and to our beloved Master Jesus, thanking them for this year of study, for our gatherings in His name, to improve not just our knowledge, but also our sensitivity towards the spiritual reality, our place on this planet and in this universe. We thank the benefactors and our guardian angels for the inspiration through questions, answers, and may we continue to deserve their effort to bring to us some enlightenment. And on our turn, to be able to spread it around us. Not so much in terms of words, but in our actions. In everything that we do in this world. Because somehow it will affect many others. It may be an invitation so that they, in their turn, will listen to the calling for the spiritual elevation. We send out love to those members of this group who couldn't join us today, and ask that love and peace may come to earth, joining the groups that work in the name of Jesus for a better world. May the new year come with the blessings of new opportunities. And may we deserve the company of the good spirits by the efforts that we put into this work. So be it.
Well, thanks a lot for your participation, for your help. I love when you guys participate, make questions, you know. And let's have a wonderful end of the year and Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you for today.
Happy New
Thank
Year.
you.
God bless.
Many thanks.
Bye.
See you next year.